Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the COVID Chronicles. I'm Dave Zanotti, the CEO of the American Policy Roundtable and co-host of the Public Square. Joining me is Rob Walgate, Vice President of the American Policy Roundtable. This is not something we wanted to do. We didn't want to do three of these. And we didn't have any intention of doing one on a Friday night in many places where it's a beautiful Friday night in different spots of the country. However, there have been developments that are happening around the country that are urgent, and we need your help. There are behind-the-scenes pieces of information you're going to hear tonight. And because people who disagree with us are also monitoring these broadcasts, they're going to hear them as well. So once this broadcast goes, okay, the word is out, and we're aware of that. So it would be a good time to be taking notes. I think it's also fair to expect this broadcast will be removed from YouTube very soon. So you want to be taking some notes and understand that if this is removed, you will have access to all of the links that we're talking about tonight at aproundtable.org. And you can continue on in this conversation at thepublicsquare.com, our daily radio broadcasts that are heard coast to coast on 200 stations. All different formats, daily and weekend. And so there will be other ways to get this. We are not dependent upon YouTube to be able to communicate one with another. It's also a very good idea if we do not have an email address on how to reach you. You know how to reach us. But if we don't have an email address, now would be a great time to visit us at aproundtable.org. Sign up for our monthly update. Give us your email address. That's a free exchange, and we do not sell or market your data at all. So you're not at risk in any way, shape, or form from a security perspective, and we're not going to, we tell people we won't ask you for money in email any more than anybody else does, okay, as a nonprofit organization. But it doesn't matter whether you ever respond to any appeal for help to fund this. This operation exists to spread the light of liberty across the land, and we're here to help you. So tonight's broadcast is made available to you because of the generous support of people from around the country, and we know you are a part of that community and that you're praying for us as we're praying for you. Okay, old business. We've talked to a lot of pastors in the last several weeks. Many of you are aware that the right to worship piece is up at aproundtable.org. And also, you'll notice in show notes from COVID Chronicles 2, you'll also notice from this week's broadcast of the Public Square that we're talking about what's happening in central Ohio around the city of Ashland, where pastors are beginning to reopen and meet together. And I want to be very careful about this because we're not trying to play a game of religious one-upsmanship with anybody or to be pharisaical or to presume for 1 minute that we would be qualified to tell any church what they should or shouldn't do in regards to Sunday morning worship. That's not what we do. We wanted you to be aware of Pastor Bouquet's work and his work on the right to worship piece, because for them, in their congregation, this is a moment for them where they've decided to resist the government interference and to make a stand that they feel compelled to make. Now, I think the point on the question of worshiping on Sunday mornings and coming together isn't whether you do it in one fashion or another, because let's face it, there is no one-size-fits-all remedy. Just like there's no one-size-fits-all remedy for the states in regards to the government trying to tell you what to do, there's no one-size-fits-all remedy on the worship question either. But I think there is one question that regardless of how big or small a congregation is, I think the question is, are you doing what you're doing because of your personal convictions and that of the community in which you serve? Or are you doing what you're doing because you're afraid of government reprisals? I think that's the point we've got to get to. That's the question of religious liberty. Are you free to do what your conscience tells you to do? Are you free to respond in faith? And you're doing it. So that's where we want to encourage everybody to be. And there'll be some models of that happening this weekend. They'll be covered on the Public Square. Please understand, Pastor Bouquet and all the pastors in Ashland would not want anyone thinking for a second that they're better than somebody else or more noble or courageous. No, they're just doing what they feel led to do, and they hope everyone will do what the same in kind. Okay, so that's old business. New business, 11:59 yesterday. which turned into 12:01 a.m. today and a whole lot of other stuff. Rob Walgate managed to send to me the 14-page new orders for the state of Ohio from Governor Mike DeWine through the auspices of Ohio the Director of Health, Amy Acton, Dr. Acton. Rob, 14 pages, huh?
14 pages. My wife said, "How'd you know that was up?" I said, "Well, I check the Department of Health website about every 5 minutes to see when the new order would be posted, because what happened in Ohio, as what happens across the country, is you have elected officials that are always talking about rules, regulations, what is going to come forward, but none of that matters until they issue an order, until they justify it in a law, however it may be in each respective state." So we knew it was coming down the pipe in Ohio because the stay-at-home order was set to expire on May 1st, and Governor DeWine had hinted that he was going to extend that. And that's exactly what happened. Now it's called the title of it, I believe, is the Stay Safe Ohio Order, but underneath it says Stay Safe Ohio Order. In the second sentence, then it says at home. So it has been extended. They may have made it a point to talk about how they are not using the terms essential and non-essential anymore. So instead of deeming someone essential and non-essential, which is extremely offensive to begin with, when you start calling businesses or people essential or non-essential, they have just listed out who can do business and who can't do business. Isn't that the same thing as listing who's essential in their eyes and who's non-essential? Because dine-in restaurants still are not permitted to open under that order. Salons, barbershops, gyms, there is a long list of people that still are not permitted to do business in the state of Ohio. And it has, without a doubt, upset a lot of folks. And we're hearing from business owners all across the state on that issue.
Today, we're talking a lot about Ohio, Michigan, Florida, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and several other states, because there are critical moments that are happening in each of these states that all of us can participate in, because we all know people in those states. And so sharing this information with people that you know that live in these key states is going to be very important. So again, you're going to want to watch the show notes here for the links and the ways that you can share this information with folks as we go around. So Rob, after I looked at the 14 pages and you looked at the 14 pages, we came to sort of a conclusion. Now, if we were really sophisticated on these broadcasts, I would have Alan at this stage in the game import some music. The music would be from High School Musical 1. That infamous Disney production that if you haven't seen it, I'm not really recommending it. But if you have, or you have kids that grew up in that era, you probably have heard it and seen it ad infinitum, and you've probably been to plenty of plays and presentations. There is a theme song for High School Musical 1, which is "We're All in This Together." Now, if you know that song, I just stuck it in your mind, you're going to be mad at me the rest of the night because it's really hard to get out. And it's a really campy sort of, 90s type tune. It's like, oh boy, we're all in this together. Sounds like a jingle for a fast food restaurant or something. And to a large degree, a lot of this entire debacle that we've been through in COVID feels like a really bad edition of High School Musical. It just gets worse and campier and more plaintive. It's embarrassing. The whole thing is embarrassing. And it'd be easy to want to walk away from and say, I can't take any more of this.
I think in a lot of ways, though, it relates to high school or junior high, because what you see around the country are elected officials that are acting like the principals or the assistant principals. And we are the high school or middle school students, and they tell us how to act, how to behave, when we're allowed to eat lunch, when we're allowed to go to the bathroom. They want control of our lives. I mean, it's evident. That's what it's all about. So they are using that control to dictate how we behave. And that concerns me at a great level.
Well, and I think what we realized last night as we were reading through these 14 pages, and I'm a little slow on the uptake on some of this, and you all probably listening around the country, you were onto this way before me. And so I apologize. I realized last night that, for example, in Ohio, Mike DeWine and Amy Acton, they're never going to let go of this. This will never be over for them. Today, John Husted, the Lieutenant Governor of Ohio, and that's the triumvirate, that's the trio in Ohio. The Lieutenant Governor, John Husted, Mike DeWine, the governor, and Amy Acton, the director of health. They do the whole thing. They come out in masks every day and they do the show. Okay. He said today that he talked in terms of the fact that the health of the people of Ohio is in their hands, in the hands of the governor and Dr. Acton. The health of the people of Ohio is in their hands. And that thought stopped me dead in my tracks. I was listening to it, actually. Rob sent the link, and the link will be a part of our show notes. You can listen to John DeWine being interviewed by a good friend on WHK Radio 1420 AM in Cleveland, Bob Frantz. And in that debate, or in that conversation, it was pretty contentious, but it was friendly but contentious. John Husted talked about the health of the people of Ohio as being in the governor's hands. You know, I got to tell you something. That's just ridiculous. Think about that. Our health is in God's hands, and our health is in our hands. And if government has a role to play, it's third at best. It is not the controlling reality. Yet that's what we've got going on right here. Right now, we've got a controlling reality, and these folks are never going to let go of the power. Here's what they're doing. They're giving you the next page of their plan, the next page of their plan. It went from March, and then it went to April, and then it went to the middle of April, then it went to the end of April, then it went to, the middle of May. Now it's the end of May. Do you know, I think they may have a plan that goes the whole way to the end of the year, but they're not going to let you know what that plan is. Because they're already talking about the second wave coming and what are we going to do in the fall? They're already making plans, but you're not going to know that.
Well, and one reason we know that is because we went back and looked at the things they talked about previously. We went back and looked at their slides the other day from the end of March. At the end of March, they released a slide that said, if we did mitigation and social distancing at the end of April, Ohio would peak, and Ohio would peak at roughly 10,000 cases per day. Well, here we are in the beginning of May. We have roughly 17 to 18,000 cases. We don't have 10,000 a day. So the goal was not to overwhelm hospitals. Mission accomplished, not going to overwhelm hospitals. However, we can't open everything up, even though we didn't come close to hitting the numbers. That's the thing in keeping control. They never give the end game. They never set a bar or a criteria to say, if you reach this number, if you reach this with hospitalizations, if you reach this, then we know we're there. No, they're not going to relinquish control, and it's very concerning.
And the same thing is happening in Florida. We've got a tremendous problem with the Orange County mayor, Jerry Demings, in regards to bullying Orange County. I mean, I talked to people that were on a golf course in Orange County the other day, and without request, 6 sheriff's department's officials on bicycles, 6 sheriffs, rode and monitored the golf course that these people were playing on. Can you imagine that?
That's very tight quarters on a golf course, Dave. You're very close to one another. There's not a lot of air to breathe, open space.
All right. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's going on, and it's going on. So we've got the same kind of situation in Florida. We've got the same kind of situation in Michigan, and Tennessee as well. I mean, another set of orders came out in Tennessee, and if you can believe this one, gyms are allowed to be opened in Tennessee, but swimming pools are not. Now, here's the hoot about that. The CDC has a full page on saying how COVID-19 can't be transmitted through swimming pools. All right. They're saying, okay, that's the one place the virus isn't going to live. It's not going to live in your chlorinated treated pool. If your pool's treated, you're safe to swim. But the governor in Tennessee is saying we can open gyms, okay, but we can't open a swimming pool. And so now you've got homeowners associations all over the place trying to figure out, it's going to be 85 degrees in Tennessee tomorrow. Do they open a pool? Do they not open a pool? What does the governor say? Okay, we don't need to pile on and pile on and pile on. Everyone watching, you know this is a mess. You know this is a mess. The takeaway point right now, they're not going to give up control. They've got a plan to keep this under control until they get the vaccine, which is a year from now. And then guess what? As soon as that vaccine comes out and is proven to only be 40% effective, they'll go into a rolling blackout or a rolling lockdown again. A rolling lockdown, because they'll say it's not effective enough. We've got to bring the lockdown back.
Well, I've always asked that to the people that are willing to take a vaccine. Is this vaccine going to be like the chickenpox vaccine where you take once, or is this like the flu vaccine where you're going to take it every year? Like, no one seems to be able to answer that question. No one knows.
And if anyone watching today, whether they agree or disagree, says that challenges that we've lost it. I mean, in each step along the way, we've had people challenge us. Don't challenge us. Talk to your governor.
Yes.
Ask your governor when he or she plans to relinquish control. in regards to these lockdowns and the quarantine? When is their exit strategy? What day are they going to be done? Ask them and watch them stammer in dead silence. If they can't tell you when it's over, it's not over.
Well, one interesting story that's come out, Dave, that we could talk about this week is from the state of Illinois, and their governor has issued a stay-at-home order. I believe his order even goes into effect where those over 2 years old are required to wear facial coverings inside stores. So they're making it extremely mandatory. But Woodford County State Attorney Greg Minger said they're not going to enforce. He's not going to enforce or prosecute a stay-at-home order. People need to make their own decisions so business can be open. They can operate. They're going to go about their day because he's worried about the unconstitutionality of governors stepping in and mandating these orders.
One of the dangers is as we go through the pages and pages of these new orders, whether it's Tennessee and whether it's Florida, whether it's Ohio, whatever state we're looking at the orders, there are sort of like red herrings that pop up to get you all looking at this thing, looking at this thing, look at this thing. But when they're trying to do something else, the whole debate about masks right now is a very difficult debate. It's a very hostile debate. It's very creating a lot of anxiety. Just so you know, I mean, Rob, you're in compliance, right?
I said I wouldn't wear a mask, but then I did. I ordered a mask. I did order a mask that I'm not sure that it will.
And yes, we are making fun of this situation because we can tell what they're doing to us. They're getting everyone worked up about the masks, but that's not the big issue. The big issue is this. Could you have believed that when we talked about electing governors in the last couple of years, I had said to you, vote for Mike DeWine, which I wouldn't have tell you who to vote for, but people would say, vote for Mike DeWine, vote for Ron DeSantis, vote for Bill Lee. They're each only going to cost you about 1 million jobs. And in fact, in Ohio, in Mike DeWine's case, they went from 0 to 1 million. Now, they didn't have zero unemployment, but they went from 0 to 1 million unemployed in 60 days.
Well, because they got to pick who was essential and who was non-essential.
And
the
of course,
government is the one
all
who
of those
decide
shoes are going to drop. You're looking at states that are going to go belly up. That within 6 months, they are going to be bankrupt. They already are bankrupt. The spreadsheets show it if you project it out. They know they're cooked. They know they're finished. But they don't care. They are never going to let go of the power. That's the problem. So how do we fix the problem? There's the problem. They're not going to let it go. They're going to get you distracted, get you looking at masks, get you looking at this. How do we deal with the conflict of power? We are now confirmed in what we talked about in the first COVID Chronicle about the necessity of quarantine reform law. I listened to John Husted today on the radio. Again, we're using Ohio as one state. And when questioned about quarantine law, he admitted, quite frankly, he didn't know when the law was written. He didn't really know the provisions of the law, didn't know the background of the law, but he knew that it was the law. And that was that the governor was doing what the governor was doing because it was legal and that was the law, because he was told that was the law. Now, I'm not trying to just pick on one lieutenant governor. But I'm telling you, you can listen with your own ears and hear that. We've got life and death decisions being made for people, their families, their businesses. And the people that are making those decisions in the room have not even done the homework on what the law says and why it says it. And in virtually every case, what we are seeing, state by state by state, are governors who are taking a very thin line of legal authority in quarantine law. Quarantine laws that came up out of the time of cholera and typhoid fever and tuberculosis and the Spanish flu. And trying to run on those laws. And here's the big difference. In all of those prior quarantines, you did not have general population quarantining going on from the state level down. And they were basically quarantining everyone, the healthy and the sick. Quarantine laws are designed to isolate and protect people who are ill. They are not designed to quarantine people who are healthy. But the governors are exhibiting phenomenal power in doing that because they bought into not the word of practicing physicians, not the word of virologist from Johns Hopkins University, but the words of epidemiologists and people like Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci, who make a living and who raise a lot of money and help a lot of people make a living from creating war games and scenarios in regards to the questions of viruses and these sorts of situations. They've taken bad advice. They've worked off of horrible models. And now we're stuck. So how do we fix this? Well, we can't go back and redo the models. We all know that. We're past that. But we can change the quarantine laws. And we have a unique opportunity in front of us right now. First off, in Michigan, you're aware of what's been going on in Michigan. Wow. Rob, can you describe what's happening up there?
Well, yeah, there were some people that are quite frankly fed up, and they went to do something about it. And they charged the state capitol, and they were chanting "Let us in." They wanted inside the chamber. And in Michigan, they have lax laws when it comes to the ability to open carry. So people were able to carry in the state house. There was no
about
violence.
Alcohol or guns?
I'm talking about guns strapped to backs, and there was no violence. I don't believe anyone was arrested. There were people exercising their constitutional rights. It was extremely, I'll say it, it was extremely refreshing to see someone willing to fight for government taking so much away from people. And in the state of Michigan, the reason that was done is because the governor issued an executive order that was set to expire. She needed that order to be, in essence, renewed, extended by the legislature. And they said, no, we're not going to do it. So she reached a far reach, in my opinion, grabbed another piece of law and extended the executive order and justified it by another position in law regarding keeping frontline healthcare workers safe, I believe is one of the quotes that she used. So, people in Michigan were fed up, and again, it was refreshing to see that they want to take that government back.
So what happened was Michigan had a law that was reformed in 1976 that put the clock for an emergency power act regarding quarantine in the hands of the legislature. That's one of the key elements of quarantine reform. You've got to get the clock out of the governor's office, out of the Department of Health, and into the hands of the elected officials. The clock's got to be in the hands of the legislature. In Michigan, it is. And so it came up 28 days, and they said, you're out of time, no more. The governor said, blank you, and said, I'll find another way to do it by executive order or seize on some other piece of law. Sue me. If you're in Michigan, you know people in Michigan, you have business in Michigan, call everyone you know and tell them, call the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House in Michigan and tell them to sue. It is critical that the legislature stand on the law and hold the governor accountable in court. It is critical. How you can help win this? Let's get a federal court ruling and state court rulings that restrict the power of governors to operate outside the clear mandate of the law. If we don't do this, friends, the rule of law will expire in this country.
Dave, one of the questions that came in was regarding that. And is this a place where Attorney General Barr could step in as well from a federal level, not to tell states what to do, but the laws that are on the books need to be followed and enforced?
The federal Justice Department needs to intervene. Now, I'm going to give you a rather liberal reading of the United States Constitution. And if you don't have a copy of the Constitution, please contact our office. We would be thrilled to send you one, free of charge. Okay, we've got different formulas of it. All right, here's our Constitution, and this is under the Article 4 for the states. Remember, Article 1 is Congress, right? Article 2 is the executive branch. Article 3 is the courts. Article 4 is the states. Article 4: the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government. Very few people know that provision's in there. What does that mean? If there's a coup inside your state and suddenly a group of people take over and strip you of all of your civil rights and strip you of your rights of representation and violate your Constitution and the federal Constitution, you can appeal to the Justice Department to step in and help you. Attorney General Barr, we, the people, need help. We have out of control governors that are seizing our civil rights. Now, to make this happen, we, the people, have to be willing to step up and say, I'll be a plaintiff. I'll invest money in the suit. I'm a lawyer. Right now, we have lawyers watching. There are lawyers that are lawmakers that are watching right now. Look, forget pro bono. You can't charge anybody for the suit. Here's the deal. If we lose this battle, it won't matter that you're a lawyer anyhow, because the rule of law is going out the window. You say, oh, Dave, that's pretty extreme. Let me tell you something. When we started in this fight, a good number of friends told me we were being extreme. They said, how long can we do a shutdown? How long can we do a lockdown? I said, you can't. What do you mean you can't? You can't go over that fence. What do you mean you can't go over the fence? You cannot go over the fence because you do not have the rule of law behind you. You cannot break the law and do the wrong thing trying to get to the right place. Once you're over that fence, you can't get back. Here we are. We're outside the rule of law. We have anarchy happening inside our systems of government. And look at the stories from Michigan. Now you've got people crashing the State House, armed, patrolling the balconies, shouting at the General Assembly in session. And the governor saying, I'm going to do my own thing anyhow. This is bad, folks. This is really bad.
A disclaimer, I showed that video to my children. And I said, this is what happens when the government doesn't follow the own rules that have been set. This is what Americans are called to do. This is what was put into place to let their voice be heard.
All right, let's go to Ohio. We need Attorney General Barr to help with plaintiffs and litigation in Ohio. The 14 pages, what the governor's been up to, what Amy Acton's been up to, clear violation of civil rights at a wide number of areas. We need the Justice Department to come in and to aggressively assist Ohioans to sue their government. The legislature to be a part of that process, yes, but we've got to get litigation going.
Well, the one thing I noticed in the order this time, I think you and I talked about it, I pointed out, I never noticed in any of the previous orders that the line, this is not to take away from the separation of powers in the Ohio Constitution. It was kind of like they knew they were caught, so let's throw the disclaimer in there to act like we don't think we're caught.
Yeah, and yes, that was a cosmic eye roll. Okay, now, so we've got to do litigation. We've said that from the beginning. But there's also a unique window of opportunity. You need to support people all around the country, support the Michigan legislature. You need to support all around the country the Ohio General Assembly. Here's what's happening in Ohio, and this is a big deal. Watch this one. The General Assembly, when we went to leadership in the General Assembly, they said, we'll get to this when it's all over. When it's all over. Remember, they said when it's all over, because they thought it'd be over by now, and they'd be doing quarantine reform. Now we find out that it's never going to end until the governor says it's over. But then it could always come back. So it's time for court. So that they told us when it's over. Then they told us, good luck with your ideas. That's interesting, but good luck. And then we went back again. They said, it's up, but you're on your own. You're on your own. If you can get people to listen to you, you're on your own. We're not going to help you. They weren't going to come back to session. They come back to session Monday and Tuesday of this coming week. Why? Because they're ticked off too. And their phones are blowing up. And people are furious. All this nonsense you're hearing in the newspaper and across the mainstream media about Mike DeWine's the most popular governor in the world, and Mike DeWine is beloved by the people of Ohio because he saved their lives and made them feel so safe and secure. Baloney. That's why the legislature's coming back in, because they are fed up with the State Department of Health issuing out on the governor's Twitter account with the governor's full support that we're going to have Spirit Week in the state of Ohio. That you're all going to be in your homes, locked in your homes, can't come out, can't do, but you're going to have Spirit Week. And the first thing we're going to do on day one of Spirit Week, this Monday of this past week, is we're going to have Pajama Day. Everybody's going to wear their pajamas all day. For all your meetings and everything you're doing at home, just stay in your pajamas all day.
That was one of the most...
I think that might have blown up the legislature. That might have been the last straw.
It did. And that's what also moved people that were possibly on the fence a little bit regarding business owners. That really, they took offense to that, because there they are working so hard. They're worried about their employees. They're worried about their employees' families. They're worried about their business that is provided for folks for years and years and years. And then once again, The leadership in the state of Ohio wants to play high school principal. That's what happens.
Our health is not in their hands. Our health is in the hands of God and in our hands. They come third in that line. I'm not saying we don't want a Department of Health. We don't want safe and clean restaurants. We don't want, right regulations for funeral parlors and hospitals. We're not saying that. What we're saying is they are not in control. My kids used to say this to me all the time and tease me and say, "You're not the boss of me." Okay, that's what America's trying to tell these people. Remember, their plan is costing 1 million jobs per state in these big states, and they're just getting warmed up on that part. All right, so Ohio legislature's coming in. We have got reform legislation being crafted in Ohio right now. There are lawmakers that are very, very busy creating really good pieces of legislation that are going to address going back to this ancient law that gives the Ohio Department of Health a single line of authority for quarantine that they've exploded into all of this nonsensical, illegal stuff. We've got a great way of moving the authority of this back to the General Assembly, put the time clock in the General Assembly's hands, and to set it up in such a way that while the Department of Health still has a role to play, that they must go to the General Assembly for their plans to be approved, and then the General Assembly will pass a law based on this, a temporary law based upon this quarantine situation, working out the plan with the Department of Health for a restricted, limited amount of time. So we cannot have general quarantines of the entire population. We cannot have an indefinite month by month, week by week, we'll get there when we get there, nonsensical situation that we have. And there are no more essential and non-essential businesses. They can't shut you down without due process. All these things that would conform to the federal constitution and the state constitution for the uniform operation of laws across the state. End of picking winners and losers. Look, the reason we don't have those laws in the books right now is because as people went through prior quarantine situations, they're so awful and negative that once you're done with them, you just want to run away and not deal with it anymore. It's awful. It's a scar. You don't want to mess with it. We can't let that happen this time because the world has become a much more dangerous place inside the United States of America. And when you have politicians that are willingly throwing away the rule of law, Republicans and Democrats alike, this is treacherous ground. We can fix it, but we've got to get to the Ohio Speaker of the House immediately. You'll find in the show notes an information to contact Ohio Speaker of the House, Larry Householder. I don't care where you are in the country. You can call and say, I'm monitoring what's going on in Ohio. You've got to fix your quarantine laws. The whole country is watching you. That's a good message. Tell, I don't care what state you're listening to right now. Call Speaker of the House and email the Speaker of the House. Tell him the whole world is watching you. You've got to change this situation now. And if you live in Ohio, one great way to talk with them about this is to say, here's the deal. If you can't reform quarantine laws between now and the election, why should we bother voting for you? This is the most important issue in the state. 1 million unemployed people in 60 days. A state budget that's blown to kingdom come. People that are locked in their homes. This has got to change, and it's got to change not just for today, it's got to change for the future. The legislation will work. There are lawmakers willing to carry it up the hill. But leadership hasn't weighed in yet. It's time for the leadership to lead and to let these lawmakers make this happen. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, and I would also add Senate President Obhof, Larry Obhof. Make sure you're communicating with him as well, because once it passes one chamber, we know they're both going to need to weigh in on that for the state of Ohio. And the same when it comes to Michigan. If you want to call the governor's office, if you want to call, as Dave mentioned earlier, and give encouragement to those leaders in Michigan that are working towards that reform, it's going to impact each and every one of us in our own way. Dave, I do have a question that came in. Is it time to go to
Sure.
one of those?
Well, and also Ron DeSantis in Florida, he needs all the support he can get. He's fighting a difficult fight in there, and he's got the locals that are beating him up on this, particularly Jerry Demings in Orange County. And that's a unique situation. There's a lot of people hurting really bad there. You know people in Florida. You have business in Florida. You have family in Florida. Get a hold of Ron DeSantis and tell him to find the spine to do what he's got to do, and don't let people bully him. Go ahead, Rob. Questions?
Well, yeah, it pertains to the role of government, and a number of folks from Illinois have written in and asked, as well as another state or two, the use of masks, and can government mandate masks on employees, on customers, on everyone, no matter where you are. If you're somewhere that you can't social distance, physical distance from someone, or if you are inside a store.
That's a question that the courts are going to have to decide, unless the politicians find the courage to make them optional. But if they're going to mandate masks, then we have to rise up and challenge that mandate. It's just that simple, and we have to challenge it in court. We say, what's the basis? I've heard this argument today, especially about, if you respect other people, you should wear a mask. Wait a minute. In the old days, the only people that wore masks were doctors and nurses for the right reasons, and bad guys. When you wear a mask, it's not a sign of respect. When you wear a mask, here's what you're saying. I'm sick and need to protect you, or I think you're sick and need to protect myself against you, or I think wherever we're going is a dangerous place and we have to protect ourselves from the dangerous place. So show me where exactly there's a positive reality in the midst of all of that. Now, if we're social distancing correctly, why do you need a mask? You say, well, I'll go to the grocery store. Yeah, okay. If you're doing the right thing in the grocery store, why do you need a mask? If you're not within 6 feet of somebody, why do you need a mask? Remember, when we didn't have enough masks, you know what they were telling us across the board? What they were telling us across the board, when we didn't have it, you don't need them. They're not essential. You can do without those. Then they changed the game. But there's a question. A lot of people have a real problem with wearing a mask. They're not comfortable with it. They feel that psychologically, this is going to have to be tested in courts. The fact that they're mandating that when they've got social distancing and they have all the other pieces in place, I don't get it. What are they afraid of? Now, it's another thing in a corporate situation. Look, I've worked in companies in the past where you had to wear masks because there were chemicals out there, and you always kept the mask on. But short of that, what's the point? And then you get into the question of, like, Rob, you saw the knit mask the other day.
I saw a couple that had a knit mask on. It almost looked, not to knock J. Crew or anything, but that's what it looked like, one of their sweaters. And I looked, and there was all these openings and gaps, and I thought, I think that's defeating the purpose of the mask, because everything could go through there that you're trying to keep in. So there's a lot of questions that remain unanswered when it comes to the validity of masks.
If you want to wear a mask, nobody's condemning anybody for doing that. If it makes you feel safer, that's great. But when the government tells you you must, now that's a problem. That is a problem, because they're presuming what? They're presuming you're sick, or everybody else is sick and the government has to protect you, or that they're permitting you to go to dangerous places. Well, if the places are that dangerous, why are we able to go to them? I mean, that's a pretty good question, right? Like, what was that meme, Rob, about the grocery store you heard today?
Oh yeah, that was a good. Let me pull that up real quick. It's a good thing. We're very fortunate this virus won't spread at grocery stores, big box retailers, or hardware stores. It's crazy how it only spreads at small businesses.
And restaurants, yeah.
And restaurants, you can touch the same door handle on the cooler to get eggs as 109 other people, and you're not going to get the virus. But don't you dare go to a small business or get a haircut. Or Wayne Shepard's sending harassing text messages during this broadcast about me and a barber. I've not seen a barber, Wayne. I don't know what you're seeing to make fun of me that I've seen a barber, but I have not seen Jason in probably, since mid-March. So you can tell if you look close, my friend.
All right. Now, another issue that's very concerning along the direction of masks, but now what we're hearing from the political forces that are trying to maintain control is that the most essential thing to get out of this is testing. Friends, there's an op-ed piece in today's Orlando Sentinel by John Mills, who's the former Dean Emeritus of the University of Florida's College of Law. John Mills, University of Florida, he does an op-ed piece in today's Orlando Sentinel talking about testing and tracking. He's onto it. If you've not read David Eger's book, The Circle, may I recommend it to you. If you need the shortcut version, you can watch the movie with Tom Hanks on The Circle, on the big tech companies and what their plans are. But if you read Dean Mills's piece in today's Orlando Sentinel, you will find that he is all over this. What he recognizes is the fact that there are software programs that are being developed or that are on your phone right now that in essence will put you in a position where if you are in the proximity of another person for 30 seconds, the phones start to talk to one another. And because of the way that Google and Apple are working together on the COVID question, what will end up happening is you'll be in a situation where if you are in an area where someone is later to have been determined to have been infected by the disease, you will be notified that you have to go into quarantine because of the phone information that was brokered between the two phones, which without your knowledge or consent, and then sent to this new set of apps, and then sent to the government, and you are forced into a quarantine. And they're saying, well, this is what we have to have. We have to have tracing because we have to know where all the sick people are, and we have to know who all the sick people have talked to, and we've got to quarantine everybody. This is a whole new step. This is a whole new world. Let's say, for example, you've got kids getting married. You've got a child getting married, and it's a very exciting point in time, and you're down to 14 days, you're down to 7 days, you got a week until the wedding. And so everybody's doing what they got to do, and it's all chaos. And all of a sudden, mom comes home, and there's a knock on the door in the morning. Mrs. Jones, this is the Department of Health. Yesterday, your phone was in the proximity of this individual. This individual is now tested positive for COVID-19, and you and your entire household must now go into a 14-day quarantine. We have the quarantine officers parked at the front door. The signs are going up in front of your home, and here are the bracelets that you and your family must wear because you may not leave the house for the next 14 days. That's going to happen unless we have quarantine reform laws. That is going to happen. This is what they think is progress. They think this would be fantastic. But again, if we were talking about Ebola, where people die in 72 hours, you're darn right we'd be talking about these kind of difficult quarantine situations. Yes. This is a virus that, according to Johns Hopkins University, one of my goals in life is to be able to say that quickly and correctly. Johns Hopkins University, this is a virus that has mild symptoms for most people. It is a mild disease with mild symptoms for most people, over and over and over again. And the Associated Press used to carry that statement in almost all their articles. They stopped doing that. This is not Ebola. So there, once again, why? Because of control. Because if they can develop the systems of control where your business and your family and your practices are such that at any time when they have a situation come up, who's they? The governors and the State Department of Health officials and the politicians, the county agents can control what's going on. You say, well, man, you sound incredibly paranoid. That's because we are. Because we're seeing it happen with our very eyes because they're abandoning the rule of law and they're making this stuff up without the consent of the governed. And what's going to end up happening is they're going to turn us against each other. Because now wherever you go, the person that you're talking to, they're not a friend or a neighbor. They're a potential infector. So you always have to guard yourself against everyone because at any given time, somebody could give you a virus. Or put you in a position where you've got to be thrown into quarantine.
And they've already, in some communities around the country, they are turning neighbors against neighbors. They're setting up hotlines where you can text them pictures. They're setting up phone centers where you can call in and turn in violators. You don't think businesses are going to call in their competitors' businesses and turn them in for violating social distancing or physical distancing orders to try and get that business closed down? I mean, we are setting up an environment where we're not going to be loving our neighbor. And we're going to be spying our neighbor.
We're setting up a surveillance society, just like China, just like the Soviet Union of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, a surveillance society. Now, if you haven't seen what Bill de Blasio has been doing in that regard in New York City in regards to Jewish worshipers, you should really be aware of that. It's frightening. The monitoring, the tracking, the tracing, and the power of a surveillance society. Okay. Because the conditioners, the social conditioners, that's what they want to do. Okay. Now, what can be done? First off, I apologize. If some of this took you too far, too deep, and you're saying, wow, I used to kind of like you guys. Now you're scaring me to death. And two, I want to believe everything you said is not true. Me too. Read C.S. Lewis's book, That Hideous Strength. He predicted all of this in 1946. Read Egger's book, The Circle. Watch the movie. This is happening. This is real. And I know it is hard to believe. But the greatest danger here is not the virus. Not this virus. The greatest danger is the virus of losing the rule of law. So that the next time something really dangerous comes along, the next group of people step in, building on all of the precedents that have been established this time, and they shut down society. And they shut down your freedom, and they shut down your liberty. These people are outside the realm of the rule of law, and their actions are very vulnerable to legislative reform and to lawsuits. Now, if we're going to sit around and just complain about it, then we really should end this conversation. We have a unique opportunity to do something in the next few days. In the show notes of tonight's broadcast, you will find who to contact, how to get a hold of your state representatives. What we need is the legislative branch to find its courage again and call your state rep and state senator. Find out who they are. Ask where they stand on quarantine reform laws. And if they give you a bunch of mealy-mouthed stuff, just tell them, look, if you can't get together on quarantine reform and stop this and put our state in a place where we're protected from this and the legislature's involved and we have a seat at the table and we're doing this through due process of law, you're just not going to get our vote in November, period, end of conversation. We'll find other people.
Do you think that is going to be like a standing question as we move forward in elections to come after 2020? Talk to me about how you feel about quarantine laws. I mean, it's entered the picture nationally.
It's got to happen, and it's got to happen from phone calls like this. There are enough people right now on this line that if everybody did everything that comes into your mind the next 72 hours, you would be amazed at what's going to happen. Now, in particular states of Michigan, they need support right now. The General Assembly there, their legislature needs to pursue litigation against their governor. They need the help of the Attorney General. They need your help and your support. You can pray for them. You can call them. You can encourage them to do it. And when you talk to Michigan, I don't live in Michigan. Call them and say, look, I don't live there, but I'm telling you, the whole world's watching. Please don't let your governor get away with breaking the rule of law. In Ohio, right now, in the next 72 hours, lawmakers are going to have to decide whether they are talking the talk or they're going to walk the walk on reform. We've got the proposals put together. They've got legislation in their hands that will work and will solve this problem. And the governor's lieutenant governor today said on WHK 1420 in Cleveland, he said that the governor and the lieutenant governor and Dr. Acton are open to quarantine reform discussions. They're open. They think that there could be changes in the law. Well, then the legislature should drive through that hole with a Mack truck and get it done. And we're doing all the heavy lifting. All right. The proposals are there. All they've got to do is find the courage to pass them with a simple majority. Say, well, the governor's going to veto them. Okay. Let him try. That's part of the process. But we'll still be here and we'll still be after it. In Florida, we got big problems, friends. You got to call and help Ron DeSantis to stand up against the bullies in the county health departments and the local mayors that are trying to stop Florida from reopening. Florida's doing very well, particularly compared to other states given the size of their population. But there are people that are bullying them. And Ron DeSantis needs some courage in all of this. And then finally, your state representative in the state that you live in, Illinois, other places, you'll find it in the show notes. If you don't know the name of your state rep, your state senator, please get a hold of them and ask them to pass quarantine reform law to protect your civil rights. Okay, that's it. Why is it important? Why do we do it today? Because in the next 72 hours, Michigan and Ohio will decide which direction they're going. You can have an impact on that. You can pray. You can reach out to these state lawmakers, and we've got to. And if we don't, We got nobody to blame. We got nobody to blame. Rob, final questions that have come in?
Yeah, we have a few questions. We have one that is asking, you're saying we don't have to wear the mask, but when it comes to social distancing, is our right and freedom not to follow that guideline as well?
Well, first off, it's your right and freedom to do whatever you darn well please. But it's also your responsibility to love God and love your neighbor as you love yourself. So with the freedom comes the responsibility. So every person's got to decide what they're doing and how they're doing it. Now, I mean, we'll have arguments about the grocery store lines and the 6-foot thing for a long time. That's just the point. See, once they get this stuff installed, it's really tough to get it out. Remember what we said in COVID Chronicles 1. If the scare becomes a wound, and that wound is so deep, the scare becomes a scar, and people don't recover from that scar. Well, so there's still more arguments to go on that.
And a lot of people have actually even questioned the science and put some tests out regarding the 6 feet. But that kind of came up as an arbitrary number.
Look, I'm not a close. Yeah. In spite of the way this may look on screen, I'm not a close talker. Okay. Seinfeld fans know what I'm talking about. I'm not a close talker, and I like washing my hands, and I don't like hanging. I don't like people to get in my space. Okay. I'm a social distancer anyways. Okay. I get that. But I do like to shake hands with people because I think that's a noble tradition. So I keep a hand sanitizer in my pocket. I wait until you're gone, then I sanitize my hands because I don't want to make you think, what I thought. But you know what? That's what I thought.
I do. So did you. Everyone's standing there.
Okay. And then everybody asks to use your hand sanitizer. Yeah. Other questions, Rob?
The election coming up. Is this a ploy to make it a strictly all-male election, not all-male female election, but via the Postal Service election?
We got big problems there. Eric Holder is now on record, the former Clinton Attorney General and the leader of the anti-electoral college movement. He is on record saying that the COVID crisis is going to give us another opportunity to make serious changes in our electoral process. We have big problems with the elections coming up. Why? Because elections take a lot of time to do well. And if there are states where governors are planning to use the second wave of this virus, because there will be second waves, there will be third waves. We're going to be battling this thing for the next couple of years. But if this performs like most viruses do, by the grace of God, and we use common sense, and nobody's suggesting we don't use common sense. If we do the right things, we should be able to get out of this. But second wave comes up, and some governors in states that want to have some mischief, or political parties or political partisans who want to have mischief, file suit and say it's not safe to have an election. And the thing gets all gummed up because some people show up, some people don't show up. Some people decide, look, we're going to have a protest in precinct, these precincts, or in this county. Our poll workers aren't coming. And the election gets messed up. Remember, this is an election for federal and state offices. The next thing you know, there's a big lawsuit that comes on the results. Let's say it happens in Tennessee. Say it happens in Michigan, Ohio, Florida, Wisconsin, Illinois. Well, if any of those lawsuits stop the count or decertify the legitimacy of an election, those electoral college votes are going to be held in limbo. If that happens in 2 or 3 states, they could crash the electoral college, and we can be in a position where we don't have an elected president of the United States. We could be in a situation where a federal judge with an agenda could disqualify the entire state's election. One federal judge could do it, and the next thing you know, you don't have congressional representation either.
And we thought 2020 was fun now.
And don't think for a second that there aren't people connected to some of these radical organizations and movements that wouldn't be thrilled that they would gladly blow up a presidential election for the sake of blowing up the electoral college for their agenda. Yeah. These people are deadly serious, friends. And I'm not suggesting that what they're doing is illegal. What I'm suggesting is if we don't understand how intensely committed they are to their agenda and how vulnerable we are right now, because once you get over that fence outside the rule of law, you create a free-for-all. And now you tell everybody, get over the fence and let's have a fight. And these people are raring to go. They want that fight.
Yeah. Question regarding money and finances. Are states, are hospitals, are municipalities being incentivized to report COVID illness or death to the federal government so that they were able to receive more funds to help reimburse them.
Excellent question, Rob.
For COVID expenses.
If you've got the answer, Rob, share it, but I don't have the answer, but we'll find that out.
Yeah, we're working on that. There's a number of hospitals that there's speculation that numbers are being bumped. And we've heard people from the CDC and other places say if someone passes away, regardless of what they pass away from, if they test positive for COVID, that is a COVID death. And that will be in there. And there's also some regarding the CDC guidelines when it comes to probables as well, if they fit some of the criteria.
Well, let's get on the incentive question. We'll get into it, and then we'll post it. And if you've got an answer already from around the country, please send it to us, and we'll post it for everybody else as well. Any other questions?
That was someone had sent one in regarding public transportation and how it spread in New York City, and why was public transportation allowed to operate in a densely populated area like that?
It's still operating.
Yeah.
There's some really creepy stuff going on in New York City in regards to public transportation. I'm not inventing this stuff. You can find it online all over the place and see what's going on. Yeah, why? Why didn't that stop? It's an excellent question. And it's a very strong inconsistency. Why?
Yeah.
All right. We try to keep these at an hour. We're actually going to stop a couple of minutes early. We want to thank you. Again, why did we call this? This is an emergency session, because there are key moments in legislatures and key moments of decisions in Florida, Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee, other decisions that are happening right now. And contacting your elected officials are important. Now, I'm going to get myself in big trouble. So what else is new? I think it's important to gently, graciously call the bluff. We know these people have hopped over the fence. We know they're operating outside the law, and they know that we know, and they know that you know. I think they would rather be on this side of the fence, and they're going to need our help to get there. Nobody's calling anybody wicked or evil. We're just saying you can't do the right thing the wrong way, and we've all tried it in life. The rule of law is the most important thing.
Yes.
That's what makes us a country. See, we're a constitutional republic. We got together not for the quest for land or power or wealth. We got together and decided to build a nation on the consent of the governed, for the sake of protecting our God-given rights. And everyone's supposed to stand equal before the law, including governors, county mayors, county commissioners, departments of health. Everybody's supposed to stand before the law equally. So we've got some work to do. We have a window of opportunity. Please don't think for a second that making a phone call doesn't matter. It does matter. We've spent 40 years in this field. When this happens, they know people are out there, and they know there are many more people out there. Your phone calls do matter. Someone said to me, yeah, what difference does it make? Don't tell me we're going to go get new people for office. The whole system has gone too far and it doesn't matter anymore. I'm sorry, friends. That's just not true. We have watched time and time and time again when 1, 2, 3, 4 people binding together, moving forward, electing a handful of people have changed things dramatically. They want you to believe that it's too far gone and it doesn't matter, but it's not. This can be a great window of opportunity to restore the rule of law. So here's where I'm going to get in trouble, and I'll close with this. I think it's important to call the bluff of some of these politicians because I'm not sure they've got it all figured out. So what would happen if a local governor, a state governor, local governor, state governor were called and asked a question like, hey, governor, we got this quarantine thing going on. We got the stay-at-home thing going on. We got this, you can't have more than 10 people together going on. So here's my question. When is our football team going to hit the field? So if you're in Iowa, when are the Hawkeyes going to hit? Michigan, hey, Big Blue, when are you going to hit the field? Why don't you call and ask the governor of Michigan when the Wolverines are going to be on the field? Might be an issue. How about UF? Let's call Ron DeSantis and say, hey, Ron, when did the Gators take the field? Or UCF? Was Jerry Demings going to stop UCF from taking the field? Or, heavens forbid, should we call the leader of the Buckeye Nation? Should we call Mike DeWine and say, Governor, I've just got a question. Will Ohio State be playing football this year? Because what do you think would happen if all those people who are presuming that by the fall this is all going to go away, were to discover that all of their governors are making plans right now for that entire realm of life to end. And it'll come back when they say so, when they're good and ready to bring it back. Would that make them wonder if maybe, just maybe, they should have been paying closer attention all along? And who in the world's the governor to say we're not going to play football? Or for that matter, the university isn't going to open. All the plans, all the works, all the efforts that have gone in, and now one person on a thin line of law based on the Department of Health is going to tell you you can't go to college? What do you think the NCAA is going to say if 6 governors decide to crash the whole process? You see, it's important to call their bluff. So if you want to have some fun, I think we ought to ask some of these governors, what do you think about those Gators? How about them Buckeyes? You going to play this fall? Because if you add up the time right now, most of these governors have just taken another 30 days away. You only have 120 days till football starts. Now it's down to 90. You think they can field these things and make it all happen in 60 days? Thank you, one and all. Please pray for us because we're praying for you, and please pray for God to have mercy on our country. We hope this is the last one we do. Make sure you save it because it's probably going to get pulled off and taken down. And please, please, please join us at thepublicsquare.com for daily conversations in this regard on the radio across the country. Alan C. Duncan, our executive producer, thank you. Anna Welch, our graphics designer, thank you. Rob Walgate, my dear friend and vice president, thank you. Final word, Rob, anything else?
We have a lot of work to do. Let's get at it.
You wanted to say go Bucks. All right. See y'all later. Thanks. Good night.
Good night.